This is directed by Sean Levy and stars Hugh Jackman, Evangeline Lilly, and Dakota Goya. My expectations for this film were pretty mediocre. The first time I saw the preview for this movie, my instant reaction was it's Transformers meets Rocky, and in a sense that's kind of what it is, but not really. This is set in the near future, where robot boxing is sort of the new thing, and humans are no longer the ones in the ring. And Hugh Jackman is one of those people who takes robots and puts them into the ring and fights them. And based on what the movie says, there are three ways for you to control a robot. There is via a headset that looks something like what you would use when you're going on Xbox Live. There is a controller, which is something like a futurized video game controller. And then there's shadow boxing, where the robot looks at what you're doing and mimics your every move. The story is pretty contrived, as are the characters, and you kind of know from the get-go how the movie's going to play out. There are a few surprises here and there, but for the most part, the story is pretty predictable. I found myself favoring the kid in this movie. He was my favorite character. I found that I sort of related to him in the sense that he had a real passion for what his dad was doing once he found this abandoned robot. And since I have a passion for film, the way that he sort of went about this newfound passion really spoke to me. Like he loved what he was doing, and his hobby sort of became like what he wanted his job to be, sort of. So he was engulfed by this entire world. This movie is directed by Sean Levy, I mentioned before, and he's the director of Cheaper by the Dozen and Night at the Museum, to name a few. Also Date Night, which came out a few years ago. He did a really, really good job directing this movie. He covered all the fights so well, and there was never any like shaky cam at all. There were good wide shots. The fights were just covered amazingly, and I was surprised. Also, this film was edited brilliantly. All the cuts were good. There was nothing too quick, nothing too slow. I was really impressed, mainly by the camera work and the editing. I'm gonna give this film a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I'd recommend seeing it because even though the story is really predictable and there are unlikable characters, I found myself really having fun with this movie and just sort of getting lost in the world. Just as a little side note, oddly enough, this movie is set in the future and yet near future, but they never tell us what year exactly. So I was kind of curious as to what year this was because they said near future, but they never gave any specifics. So I was kind of like, oh, what is this, like 10 years in advance, 5 years in advance? Overall, a really fun movie and one that I would suggest seeing. 3.5 out of 5 stars.